my channel and welcome to episode 3 of my Clear the Cart series that I started back in June here on my channel. I am trying to clear my TBR cart by the end of the year. We started off with 60 books on this cart, and I have to say, June was my first month of creating a TBR and trying to see if I could read through 10 of the books that were on the cart. I don't wanna spoil anything. Here are the books that I was supposed to read, okay? So these are the books that we chose together for my June TBR, and here are the books that I actually read in the month of June, AKA, I freaking did it, y'all. I read all the books that we chose together for my June TBR, and I even read a bonus one. I read 11 books in the month of June. I am so proud of myself because this TBR was no freaking joke with the tandem read of Empire of Storms and Tower of Dawn. That one almost took me out, I'm not gonna lie. We'll get to that in a second. So before I get into sharing all the books that I read in June and what I thought about them and all that good stuff, I thought that I would share my stats with you. I nerd out over seeing other people's reading stats, so I figured why not share my own. The total number of books that I read, like I just told you, was 11. The total pages that I read in June was 4,085. I think that's the highest number of pages I've ever read in a month, to be honest. And as far as genre goes, here is the breakdown for that. I read 5 romance, 2 fantasy, 1 media tie-in, 1 YA mystery / thriller, 1 YA romance, and then 1 nonfiction. So that is what my June looked like. I am very proud of myself that I completed my June TBR. It was my first time ever in my whole life as a reader choosing a monthly TBR, and I did it. I did it, and I read a bonus one. Hello. We love that. We love that. So, okay, before I share my thoughts on all of these books with you, I told you guys in my last video, which was the video where I did the mid-year tag, that I was gonna share with you what I'm doing about books that I'm buying in 2024. I asked you guys if I should add them to the cart or if I should start a new cart or what I should do, and I read through all of your suggestions. Thank you for leaving them. Y'all left me so many good ideas, and what I've decided to do is I'm going to stick with the original 60 that we started with when I started the Clear the Cart challenge back in June. So I'm not gonna add any books to the cart. I'm gonna leave it as is. Any books that I buy are going to go over into my 2025 TBR. I have a section on my bookshelves, which, by the way, we're at a new spot filming. I don't know if you noticed, but I'm in the middle of redoing my bookshelves. They're almost done, and I'm obsessed, and I cannot wait to show you. I'm gonna film a whole bookshelf tour once they're all done, and I cannot wait. I'm hoping that my husband and I finish in July, so I'll be able to film that video this month, but he's gotta do some building that I need done to the top of the bookshelves, and then you'll see. I have a vision, okay? I have a vision. So anyway, I have a whole section on my bookshelf over there where I am keeping the books that I've bought that I am saving to read for 2025. But this is the idea that I got from some of you guys. Give myself a book buying allowance every month. So I can't just be going willy-nilly, going to Barnes & Noble and buying 5, 6 books 3 or 4 times a month, okay? That is how we got here. That is how I got a TBR cart that was out of control for a little while. So as of right now, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 books over there, which I'm wait a second, that means I bought 7 books in the month of June. But you know what? It's okay. So my limit for myself moving forward from July on is I'm only going to allow myself to buy up to 5 books. I'm going to try to stick to 3 a month, but I'm also a realist, so I'm giving myself kind of a range. 3 to 5 books a month I'm allowed to buy. And I'm just building my 2025 TBR because the thought of going into 2025 with nothing on my TBR cart kind of makes me a little bit anxious, and I don't love the idea of that. So we're gonna keep the TBR cart as it is for the rest of the challenge, and then I will slowly grow my 2025 collection over there on my bookshelf. So thank y'all so much again for weighing in, giving me your suggestions, and helping me decide what to do. Most of you guys said that that's what I should do. Do not add any more books to the cart because I want to be able to complete the challenge. You know what I'm saying? So if I add more and more and more books, I'm just digging myself in a hole and I won't be able to complete the challenge. So anyway, that is the update that I wanted to give you for how we're handling buying new books this year, because it is just very unrealistic for me to say I'm not gonna buy any books this year. That would just never happen. You know what I mean? So I'm just trying to be real. Okay, so now that we're all on the same page on how we're handling book purchases for the rest of 2024, let's get into talking about the books that I read in June that I was able to clear off of my TBR cart, and we'll get into it. My goal is to talk about each book for like a minute or less because I don't want this video to be super long, and also I have a tendency to yap and yap and yap, and then I tend to accidentally get into spoilers, and obviously that's not the vibe. We don't want to do that. So I'm going to do my best to share with you just like a few sentences about each book, but before I get into each book, I want to share with you guys what my star rating system is. That way, when I'm giving books star ratings, you know what I'm even saying, right? Because I feel like everybody kind of has their own rating system, so I want us to be on the same page, so you know like what I'm talking about when I give a book like 3 stars or 4 stars or whatever. I will say I do not give out a lot of 5 stars. I'm very, very stingy and very, very picky with my 5 stars. So my star system goes like this. If I give a book a 1 star, it means I absolutely hated it or I DNF'd it. If I give a book a 2 star, it means it was okay. If I give a book a 3 star, it means I liked it, but it's not memorable. If I give a book 4 stars, it means that I was invested in the book and I really enjoyed it. If I give a book 5 stars, it means that I cannot stop thinking about it and it basically lives rent-free in my brain. Okay, so now that you know my star rating system, let's get into chatting about each of these books. So I'm not even gonna say them in the order that I read them because I'm a mood reader and I am probably reading like 4 books at any given time at the same time. So we're just gonna jump in and go for it. I do have my Notion pulled up here that has my star rating because I don't remember what I give books like off the top of my head. I just don't. That's why we love Notion. You know what I mean? I'm gonna tell you what the book is, how many stars I gave it, and then how I read it because I did listen to some of these books. Okay, so the first one that we're gonna chat about is Gilmore Girls, The Other Side of Summer. I gave this 3.5 stars. I thought for sure this would be like a 4 or 5 star, but it didn't live up to my expectations. And here's why. It wasn't bad if you're a fan of Gilmore Girls. Here's the thing. It felt like I was reading a script. And I feel like with Gilmore Girls, there's so much banter in the show, and it's just like, it didn't come off the same here. Like it really did just feel like I was reading a script. And if I hadn't watched the show and I wasn't already in love with the setting and the characters, this would have just been so boring to me, to be honest. So not super stoked about that. Did I love it because I love Gilmore Girls? Yes. If you love Gilmore Girls, like you're a mega fan like me, you'd probably enjoy this to a certain extent, okay? But I'm just saying I don't think that it's necessary, especially this is what really let me down. I was under the impression, because this is what I've been told, that the books are like original content, that they're not after an episode that's already been created for the show, like that it was new content. No, it was exactly like episodes of the show. So I think this one was a couple of episodes that were part of season 2. And so it just was like, I already knew everything that was going on. It was just kind of boring, but it was a very, very quick read. I don't regret reading it, and I have 3 other ones on the TBR cart. The other one I picked for my July TBR. And so I don't regret reading it, but I wouldn't tell anyone and everyone that they need to pick this up and read it. You know what I mean? Oh, and I read this one physically because I don't even think this is available on audio or Kindle or anything like that. So I read the physical copy of this one. Next up, we have Expiration Dates by, I do not know how to say this author's name, Rebecca Serleip. I don't know, y'all. I don't know. You know how I'm with names. It's not my strong suit. It's not. And this was another 3.5 star read for me. I read this one with my virtual book club, so that was fun to read it alongside other people and get to chat about our takeaways and stuff. So what I have come to find about this author, I have now read 3 books by this author. Her writing makes me mad. I shouldn't say her writing makes me mad. I enjoy her prose, the way that she like puts words together, but I feel like her plots are so clunky. And every time, all 3 of the books that I've read by her, I feel like I'm getting whiplash. Like I'm just like, wait, what's going on? Like, wait, who's talking? Whose point of view are we in? So it's really hard for me to stay in the story because I feel like I just am having a hard time keeping up. And when I talked about this in book club with the other girlies who read this with me, they agreed. So I know it's not just a me thing. I really wanted to love this book, but I liked it. I don't regret reading it, but it's definitely not one that I'm going to remember. It's about a girl named Daphne, and before she dates someone, or right when she starts dating someone, she gets a slip of paper that has the guy's name and how long she's gonna be with them. So that's all I'm gonna say because I don't wanna spoil anything. the storyline is so unique and there was so much potential for it to be amazing. Like, I was very excited about the like premise of the plot, but it just wasn't done how I wanted it to be done. The end made me so annoyed. I was so annoyed. And so yeah, it was a 3.5 for me. And I read this one, the physical copy of it. So that brings us to book number 3. And this is Betting on You by Lynn Painter. Listened to this one on audio and I gave it 3 stars. I listened to this at the beginning of June, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't really remember hardly anything. Now, I will say I'm not a huge romance YA reader, so I think that's maybe why. I don't connect with characters. I'm much older than them. Like, I don't know, they're just silly to me, which that's the point of them, right? Like, they're YA romance, like silly, fun, good times. So I don't know like what I was expecting going into it, but the characters just frustrated me. They just annoyed me, and especially the guy character. I don't even remember what his name was. Charlie? Yeah, Charlie. Charlie just annoyed me, and I don't know. It just wasn't my favorite book, and I feel like it's really long for a YA romance. So not my favorite, and I probably will never think about it ever again. And to be honest, I don't even know how to summarize it. Like, when I think about it, I'm like, what even was the book about? So I wish I could tell you what this book was about, but I truly have no idea. So if you want to go read the summary, but not one of my favorite books. So that was that one. Next up, we have X's and O's by Amy Lee. I listened to this one on audio as well. I had very low expectations for this, y'all. I'm not gonna lie, because the reviews that I have read and that I've heard, very mediocre, very subpar. I actually really enjoyed it more than I thought I would, probably because my expectations were low. I gave it 3.5 stars because even though I had a good time while I was reading it, it's one that I don't think that I'm gonna think about ever again, to be honest. I will say, I think I'll think about the ending. I don't wanna spoil anything, but what he does at the end for her, I was just like, that's cute. That's real cute. So I really did enjoy the ending, but it was just, you know, a nice, cheesy, easy romance. I listened to it while I was working out, and it was just a good, fun time. The female main character, don't remember her name, she's a book influencer, which I thought was so cool. But also the characters, one thing I do remember about this, they were so immature. They were in their 30s. She's a nurse, like that's her day job. I don't remember what he does, to be honest. And I just feel like they were so immature. I was like, wait a second, is this YA? Like, I had to keep reminding myself that this was an adult romance. One of my icks when I'm reading adult romances is when the characters are so immature. Like, I don't mind if they have an immature moment. We all do, right? Like, that's part of being a person. But just the things that they do over and over and over, I'm just like, okay, like, how old are we? How old are we? So I had a cute, fun time while I was reading it. I really liked the ending, but I'll probably never think about this book ever again. So do with that what you will. Next up, I have The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. I read this one at the very beginning of June. I think this was my first book that I read in the month of June. Also, my dog is being very loud next to me. I'm so sorry if you can hear him, but we're just gonna keep it rolling, okay? So I hardly remember like the details about this one, but I just remember having such a great time. I read the physical copy of this and I gave it 4.25 stars. Okay, my battery died. So if it looks a little bit different, that's why, but we're back. I was talking about The Paradise Problem. I really did have such a good time reading this one. I feel like it's just a perfect summer read. Like, I was laughing, I was having a good time. It's very unrealistic, but it was just a silly, goofy time. You know what I mean? So it's about Anna and Liam, and if I can remember names of characters, that's a big deal because I never remember names of characters. And they are fake married when they're in college so that she has somewhere to live, and because he is trying to get some sort of inheritance and he needs to be married for a certain amount of years in order to collect it. And that's all I'm gonna tell you, okay? It's just very silly, very funny, a very good time. If you're looking for a light, fluffy summer romance read, this one. It'll make you laugh. It'll make you laugh. And who doesn't like to laugh? You know what I mean? So that is The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. Next up, we have The City Baker's Guide to Country Living by Louise Miller. I listened to this one on audiobook and I gave it a 3.75 stars. Now, I will say, the reason that this was on my TBR cart is because somebody told me that if I'm a fan of Gilmore Girls, that I had to read this book. So of course I bought this book and I read it, and I will say I definitely get the vibe. The townspeople in this book definitely give me the vibe of Stars Hollow, okay? So if you like Gilmore Girls, I think you should read this book. It's a very good time. I think it would read better in the fall. It's a very cozy read, very light, very fluffy, very easy to read, very like wholesome, cozy, small town vibes. There's a dog in this book named Salty, and I just loved him so much. So Olivia is a baker, and she moves from the city to a small town to bake for an inn, and she gets to know the townspeople. And I don't want to ruin anything, so that's all I'm gonna say, but it was just a very cute, easy read. Again, I would want to read this more in the fall because I feel like it's just very cozy, but if you like Gilmore Girls, I think this is worth the read. Like, I'm probably never gonna think about it again. I feel like that's what I say about all the books. There are very few books that like stick in my head forever and ever. This just is not one of them. So anyway, it was a good time while I was reading it, and it did what it needed to do. It reminded me of Gilmore Girls, okay? So I'd like to come say hello. You can come around here. My sweet old man Buck. He's the one who was snoring in my, I think 2 videos ago. Hey buddy, I love you so much. I'm gonna finish filming this video, okay? Okay, the next book that I'm gonna talk about is the only 5-star read that I had for the month of June. It is called Ready or Not, and I did talk about this one in my mid-year book tag video. This is the first book that I read back in June, and I still remember so much of it, which is saying a lot because I read 11 books and I already have a bad memory when it comes to remembering what I read. So the fact that I remember so much about this just goes to show that it really is a 5-star read to me. I read the physical copy of it, and I think, and this is what I talked about in my mid-year book tag, I am a mom, and I feel like that is why I connected so deeply to this book, because it is about our main character, Eve, right? Yeah, and she unexpectedly gets pregnant. That's not a spoiler. It is on the back of the book, I think. Let me make sure. Yeah, not a spoiler. It says it on the back of the book that she is walking through an unexpected pregnancy, and this just got me in my feels. It made me cry. The end, I was crying. It was so cool to watch Eve go through her pregnancy, healing and just trying to be the best version of herself so that she could show up for her unborn baby and be the best mom that she could be once the baby was born. And also, let me just say, Shep, one of the male characters in this book, an actual angel on earth. He is the sweetest, most thoughtful male main character that I have ever read about. I kind of forgot about him when I was doing the mid-year book tag and I was talking about like my new fictional crushes. Miles is still number 1, okay? Miles, funny story, still number 1. But Shep is a close number 2. He is just so pure, so sweet, so wholesome. He definitely deserves a shout out, okay? So highly recommend this one. I had such a good time reading it. If you're not a mom, I don't know if you would emotionally connect to it. Maybe, maybe not. If you're not a mom and you've read this, leave a comment and let me know like what you thought about it. But I loved this book. It is one of my new favorites, and I'm really, really glad that I read it. Also, Abby Jimenez has a little blurb on the back. I don't think I knew that. That makes me love it even more because she is like one of my top 3 favorite authors. Next up, we have Killer Instinct by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. This is book number 2 in the Natural series. I liked this one so much better than I did the first book. Not so much, but I did like it more than the first book. The first book scared me. This one didn't scare me, but this one really kept me guessing. I gave this one a 4.25 and I listened to this one on audio. So if you've never heard of the series, The Naturals, it's about a group of teenagers who are in this program called the Naturals program, and it's like a part of the FBI, and they are helping with cold cases, okay? So I don't want to say anything because I don't want to like spoil, because I feel like when it comes to like mysteries and thrillers, like the less you know going into it, the better. But these kids who are part of this program, they all have natural abilities. So like natural lie detectors, natural emotion readers, like stuff like that. And so I got way more attached to the characters in this book than I did the first one, and I've heard, because I have 2 more left to read in the series on my TBR cart, I have heard that you just get more and more attached to them as the series goes on. And I will say the ending of this one definitely threw me for a loop. I did not see it coming at all, but also for some reason I wasn't like jaw on the floor. Like even though it's not what I saw coming, I wasn't like, oh my gosh. I was just like, oh, okay. So I really had a good time reading this one. It felt less scary scary to me than the first one. The first one scared me, I'm not gonna lie. Maybe it's because I was just getting used to the series, but it really scared me. This one didn't scare me, but it really was a good time. I did not listen to any of it at night. I only listened to it during the day because I'm a big baby, okay? That brings us to the last two books that we are gonna talk about in this video. The tandem read of Empire of Storms and Tower of Dawn, which are a part of the Throne of Glass series. Now, it was the 11th hour when I finished these. I did finish them in the month of June, which I am so proud of, but I had to download the audiobooks of these so that I could finish them in the month of June, okay? So let me just show you. I feel like I need to frame this thing. I am so proud of this because I did do the tandem read. And so I read all of this row, all of this row, all of this row, and all of this row. Like, I read the books. And then the last row, I didn't have time to get it in during the last day of the month. We were out of town the last week of June, and I was just like, I need to listen if I'm gonna finish these in the month of June. So I downloaded the audiobooks and I listened to the very tail end of each one on audio. And let me just tell you, okay, I can't say too much about these because they are like very far down in the Throne of Glass series and I don't want to spoil anything, obviously. So I gave Empire of Storms a 4.25 and I gave Tower of Dawn a 4. I will say I had very low expectations for this one because I've heard it's so boring, and it did feel a little bit boring. It definitely felt like filler. Technically, this one comes before this one if you are unfamiliar with the series. They're on the same timeline, and that's why people recommend the tandem read. What I've heard is because they're the same timeline, and if you go from reading this full book to reading this, you'd be so bored. At least I think so, because this was action freaking packed, so many twists, so many turns. Like, my jaw was hitting the floor when I was reading this. I was just like, what the heck? It did feel a little too long to me. Like, I think some of it could have been cut out and like condensed. That's why I gave it a 4.25. I feel like if I would have read this right after this, I would have been falling asleep. Like, I would have been so bored, but reading them at the same time made this one not feel as boring. It did just feel, I shouldn't say boring, it just felt like a lot of filler. I was like, okay, like, can we get on with it? But I do understand that this had to happen in order to set up for the last one, which is Kingdom of Ash, which is on my July TBR, and I'm going to be reading it, and I'm so excited to finish the Throne of Glass series. So I highly recommend the tandem read in order to make this one not as boring, okay? So I am so excited to read Kingdom of Ash. I feel like the Throne of Glass series started really good for me, then it started to get a little bit slow for me. After I read Crown of Midnight, I read The Assassin's Blade. So I read Throne of Glass first, absolutely loved it. Then I read Crown of Midnight, absolutely loved it. Then I read Assassin's Blade, and I feel like it just like took me out, and then I couldn't get back into it. So then I went into Queen of Shadow, Heir of Fire? Yeah, and then Queen of Shadows, and those ones were kind of hard for me to get into because I feel like reading Assassin's Blade third just kind of pulled me out. And I read it that way because that's what Sarah J. Maas says to do on her website. But personally, and I know that this is very controversial, I wish I would have read Assassin's Blade first. Really, I do. Because I feel like reading it third really just pulled me out of the story, and it was hard for me to get back into the story once I was out of it. But these books won me back over. They got me back in it, and I'm so excited for Kingdom of Ash. Truly cannot wait. Okay, so those are the 10 fiction books that I read in the month of June. I do have the nonfiction book that I read, but I don't think I'm gonna talk about them because they're not a part of my Clear the Cart series. Let me know down in the comments if you guys want to hear my thoughts on the nonfiction books that I read. I only read 1 to 2 a month, so it's not like a crazy amount. I'm happy to share my thoughts on the nonfiction books that I read if you guys are interested in that, but also I don't want to talk about them if y'all don't care. You know what I mean? So let me know. Before I wrap up this video, I wanted to give you just a quick overview of how I'm doing so far on my Clear the Cart TBR challenge. I am so proud of finishing my TBR for the month of June and the progress that we've already made. And I feel like because we started strong, we're gonna do this thing. Like, I am so confident, and I can't wait for you to watch this graphic over the next couple of months. Just have all the little check marks on them. Like, truly, I cannot wait. Episode 4 of Clear the Cart is going to be my August TBR, and then I'm also hoping that I'm gonna be able to film another video this month showing a little bookshelf tour. As long as we finish my bookshelves, that is my game plan. But anyway, make sure you subscribe if you want to see if I can clear this cart by the end of 2024. I love you so much. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have the best day ever.